I'll call to order the Bedford Township Planning Commission regular meeting for December 20th, 2023. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Jody, I'm assuming you can do the roll call this evening?
Yes. Mr. Fritz. Here. Mr. Steiner.
Aye.
Mr. Andrews.
Here.
Mr. Mahoney.
Here.
Mr. Helm.
Here.
Mr. Krovrat.
Here.
Mr. Lamkowski is unexcused.
Thank you, Jody. Item number 4, approval of the agenda. Looking for a motion?
Make a motion, make a motion to approve the agenda as submitted.
Second.
Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Agenda is approved. Item number 5, appoint the Planning Commission representative to the Board of Zoning Appeals for 2024.
I'd like to nominate Pat Mahoney to the liaison position for zoning appeals.
I'll accept.
Yeah.
Any other nominations at this time? Okay. Need a vote, right? Those in favor of nominating Mr. Mahoney signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? Congratulations. Item number 6, approval of the minutes of December 13th, 2023. There's no comments or additions. Looking for a motion.
I move to accept or approve the minutes from the board meeting of December 13, 2023.
I'll second.
Moved and supported. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, minutes are approved. Move on to item number 7 under public, public comment. If there is anyone, this is different than the continuation of the public hearing that we'll have here in a little bit. Jody?
I just want to advise that AA, it is just a continuation for discussion and for final site plan. That public hearing has been closed. So if any of the public has any comment regarding AA, now would be the time to make those comments regarding that public comment time. But 8B is a continuation. It still is an open public hearing.
And that would be the opportunity to comment on 8B. Yep. Please state your name and address for the record.
Gail Kane, 1056 West Temperance. In regards to 8A, because I will get opportunity for 8B, right? You'll open public. Okay. All I can say is that I remember hearing about this and the concern. I'm hoping, since you're looking at the final site plans, and I neglectfully did not look at the packet online, all I can remember is with my husband being a volunteer fire department at the time that the Reliance fire hit on Lavoie Road. It was one of those fires that was left in the memory books of our volunteer firemen. So I certainly hope that within your final site plan, you have, given some sort of accordance for what if. Because if those things go up, it will be a fire that, again, will go down into the books of Bedford Township. So that's all I'm saying is just please make sure you've got our first responders taken care of. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional comments at this time? Okay. We'll move on to item number 8, old business, 8A, continuation for a recommendation on a conditional rezoning agreement from agricultural to I-1 industrial request and a determination on final site plan for Dyerbrook Properties of Michigan, LLC. Jody?
Yes, the public hearing was held on November 15th, 2023 for the request for Deal Brook Properties of Michigan LLC, LA Bexton, for conditional rezoning request to rezone a 5-acre portion of a 30-acre parcel located on the west side of Minks Road and Telegraph Road. The public hearing was held and closed. After much discussion, the applicant and the applicant's representative, Mr. Tucker, requested both items to be tabled to the December 20th Planning Commission meeting, and I have included those minutes. Included in the packet is the updated proposed language for the conditional rezoning agreement provided by Mr. Tucker on behalf of the applicant, the previous analysis from 11/15/23, the Bedford Township's planner review analysis, the approval minutes from September 6th of the Township's board's variation of the development design standards for gravel, the approval minutes from September 11th, 2023, Board of Zoning Appeals variance on frontage to create the parcel, and an updated submitted site plan for review. An updated approval review letter from the Monroe County Drain Commissioner's Office regarding the soil erosion and sedimentation control, which now approves the plans. The previous packet, they were still working with the Drain Commission on soil erosion. And the submitted site plan for review and determination with reviewing agencies' approval letters, which include an updated landscaping fencing plan. The language within the conditional rezoning agreement that was discussed with the commission. I'll touch base on those very quickly. I believe there was a discussion on number 5, and once the applicant comes up, I will let them further. I believe the hazardous materials, they have added the language with materials shall be properly stored and maintained in compliance with all applicable laws and regulations. And I believe one of the is methanol is because of the regulators freezing up in the winter. They would need that on site to be able to utilize filling of the bulk trucks. But I will let the applicant speak further on that. Discussion on number 14 with the breach of agreements. And working with Mr. Tucker, coming up with the 30 days cure, and then a written request by the applicant to the township board to said 30-day cure period. They would have to request that from the township board to extend that any further than 30 days. Completion of the project. If development of the split parcel on the site plan has not commenced within 1 year, they did change the 1 year of the agreement, then the parties hereto shall thereafter have the right but not the duty to terminate the agreement. Construction and development of the site plan is approved by the Township Planning Commission with no more than 6 above propane tanks to be completed within the first 3 years from this agreement. No tank or tanks may be installed anytime thereafter the 3-year period unless approved by the Township Board upon written application of the owner per the process set forth in paragraph 10 above. And if you look at paragraph 10 above, it is the process that should it be determined that it's a major request, then it would have to go back through the entire process to the Planning Commission for a public hearing and then to the Township Board, any changes. They changed number 19 and they added number 20 for the site plan variance and waiver to include the exhibits B, C, and D as requested. And they have them labeled, of course, that it will be inserted once the determination is moved forward. And keep in mind, they do have conditions on the site plan that will still have to be amended before the document can be recorded once the determination is made from the Township Board. I would suggest that we look at the language of the agreement before then moving forward with discussion on the site plan process. I know discussion was made on the fencing. They have made that change on the site plan with the landscaping plan. They did increase that fence to 8 feet chain link. That does enclose the entire area where the 3 proposed tanks are, and then an extension to be installed once they increase I'm assuming per tank. Should they add 2 more or 3 more, that will be included in the chain link area. And it does have a 2-foot gated opening on the east side of the tanks. They did include the landscaping that was requested around the property. I had discussions with Mr. Van Drum. I'm sorry, I'm going to mess that up every time. Mr. Van Drum from Feller Finch, and they opted to not move forward with a request to amend the landscaping, so they did increase the landscaping as required. That was discussed at the last meeting. At this time, I have nothing further unless discussion with the applicant.
Thank you, Jody. Is there anyone from the applicant who'd like to provide some comments? Please state your name and address for the record.
Yes, hello. Kyle Tucker, Eastman and Smith, 1 Seagate. I'm back. As you'll recall, we appreciate you guys working with us on this. There was some confusion on my end last time we were here with respect to what was submitted and whether or not we could orally amend it on the record, as you may recall. We've gone back, we've addressed all the issues that were raised, including the breach of agreement, as Jody mentioned, the completion of the project provisions, which now just basically require, in the event that there is a breach alleged by the township that can't be cured within 30 days, it gives us an opportunity to apply to the township board for an extension of that 30-day period if there happens to be some sort of breach that can't be cured in a short amount of time. The other provision we talked about at length was the completion of the project, and we were just based on market demands anticipating an initial 3 tanks being installed, and there was some concern that getting up to 6 tanks at the site within the first 3 years will be difficult. In any event, where we arrived at was that the work must be commenced within the first year of the effective date. If we do not install all 6 tanks within the first 3 years, we have an opportunity to request to the board, as mentioned by Jody. Township board can approve, and I think the way I read it is with an amendment if they determine it to be a material or significant change. Otherwise, they might agree, okay, well, you were approved up to 6, and you're just adding maybe a 4th, so we can proceed accordingly. In any event, it requires written application to the owner, and so it will be vetted again here by the township. The other provision that we were asked about was the hazardous material, and I misspoke on that. It does turn out that methanol is used as part of the filling process for the purposes of keeping the tanks and the regulators from freezing. And so there are some regulations in place with respect to this type of material. It's going to be regulated by OSHA. There's a fire protection association that also has some regulations in place, the EPA. It will be stored in a 50-gallon drum, and as far as I know, maybe even a dike to prevent spills. If there are any spills or leaks, obviously it's a obligation of the owner to clean up. They have not had any issues at their other sites with respect to that, so I don't anticipate it being a problem. As noted, all types of materials shall be stored and maintained in accordance with all applicable laws and regulations. Those were the 3 main provisions I think we talked about. There was also a request that we incorporate, because the site plan is really incorporated as an exhibit, but we're making it more expressly included as part of one of the provisions that also incorporates all the previously approved variances and waivers that the township has granted. Here with me is Mr. Van Drum, who's able to field any questions about the site plan particulars. I do know that we talked at length last time about the landscaping. You'll notice now there is adequate screening that surrounds the property and shields it from adjacent properties. And we believe that's all in accordance with the township ordinances. What else? Beyond that, obviously we're just here to ask for a favorable recommendation. Can field or take any questions you might have.
Good, thank you. I appreciate it. And if there's ever a good use of a tabling, I guess this is a good use, right? You guys obviously heard what we were talking about last time. We appreciate you guys, taking our comments into consideration and coming back with what you've come back with. I'll open it up for comments, questions from the commission. Mahoney.
Okay, I have a question, very basic question. We're rezoning from agricultural to industrial. Did you look in other industrial areas in the township, and why did you reject those?
Well, I would have to, yes, defer to the,
Please state your name and address.
Hi, Melinda Hasbrook, 6610 Sylvania Petersburg Road in the Ottawa Lake. We did look at other industrial areas based on the size we need. We like this one because it's sort of out of the way. It's right on the outskirts, and so that way our trucks won't be going through the main parts of town to get to access the site. The trucks will stay on the very outskirts of the city. The other industrial properties we looked at just weren't suitable to our needs based on wetlands, location, size.
Okay. Ms. Mahoney, good? Good. Any other comments, questions from the commission? One question, Jody, regarding the status of approvals, the comment we heard in the public comment period about, I guess, the fire department and other agencies. Comment on the status of those approvals, when or if we already have them, etc.
With the county agencies and the reviewing agencies which are in the packet, those comments have not been revised or addressed yet. I'm just going to pull up the road commission one first. Those will have to be addressed on the site plan before they can move forward with them. You'll see on this one, even from the drain commissioner's office regarding the soil erosion, these are her conditions that she will need before she gives approval for them, and they would have to have all of these before they can submit for construction through the building department. I will let the applicant speak on where they're at. I believe that once the site is up, then that's when they would have in the state and federal codes regarding the propane tanks, but I will let them address those comments for the state and federal laws with what's required. I believe they have to have it posted in that at the site. But these comments these are referring to the site plan, which will be the next item that you'll discuss. But these are all referring to the site plan. You will see the fire department has asked for a key box with a contactor, contact the fire department inspector with the application box, and that he will want to know who to call for emergency purposes should they need to have access to the site. On the Drain Commission's comment, they have 4 comments and then conditions on the site plan. These will all have to be addressed on the site plan. And then once they have a determination from you and from the township board, I'm sure they don't want to have the expense of moving forward until they have a decision. Without the determination on the contract rezoning, site plan cannot be approved. It will have to be conditioned upon all of these on your recommendation until the township board makes a decision on the rezoning. I believe Mr. Van Drone can speak on them as well as he's the one actually working through the site plan and these reviewing agencies.
Okay, thank you. Mm-hmm. So at this point, the commission members, if there's no additional comments, questions, we're looking for a motion specific to the conditional rezoning request. Mr. Mahoney?
Make a motion to approve the final site plan for the parcel number 58-02.
It's got to be the rezoning first.
Okay, there's 2 motions?
I'm sorry, this one is only the discussion, and it's going to be a recommendation to the township board only on the contract rezoning language.
So we'll have to do 2 separate ones.
2 separate ones, okay. I make a motion to require the conditional zoning agreement between the applicant and Bedford Township to be submitted by the applicant with the Monroe County Register of Deeds. Is that for the agreement?
Second. Moved and supported by Mr. Steiner.
No, that was Mr. Fritz.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Fritz. Sorry. So
I'm sorry.
you need a little bit more support, right?
Yeah, in the packet information, we'll want to make sure we include all the conditions and requirements for the rezoning
So a friendly amendment, if I can, because I wrote those down. I think I have them here.
I was going to have them in my motion originally.
Well, we have to have two because you haven't discussed or reviewed the site plan yet. That's going to be a separate, because the township board actually is not going to approve the site plan. That's done by the planning commission, but they can't have an approval of a site plan until the township board makes a decision. So they're doing them in conjunction, so everyone, planning commission and township board, could see exactly what they're proposing, where they're proposing it, in conjunction with the language. So you're going to make a recommendation on the language of the conditional rezoning to the township board
Okay.
first.
I'll make a motion that the township board approve the proposed conditional zoning agreement from agricultural zoning district to I-1 industrial, consistent with the discussion and determinations made during the meeting, subject to an approved land division of application submitted through the assessing department and approval from the planning commission of the final site plan, that the conditional zoning agreement, together with the approved site plan, is recorded with the Monroe County Register of Deeds. Any approval shall include reasoning that the request limits the property to the stated use and does not allow other I-1 district uses, some of which are likely to have negative impact on the surrounding areas. And voluntary conditions will help mitigate the negative impacts of development on the area and the community.
Support.
Okay, so that is supported again. Any further questions, clarifications? Okay, Jody, can you take the roll call vote, please?
Yes, Mr. Mahoney.
Aye.
Mr. Fritz.
Yes.
Mr. Steiner.
Aye.
Mr. Andrews.
Aye.
Mr. Helm.
Aye.
Mr. Kovrat.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Okay. Artie.
Something I missed, of course, we have less than a full body here tonight, and we didn't advise the applicant that he has an opportunity to defer his decision to another meeting where there's a full body. I guess we can't guarantee when that'll happen. So I apologize for missing that.
I apologize as well. I missed that.
No, it's okay. We recognized that at the outset, and I actually asked Melinda, and she was okay with proceeding, so thank you.
Okay, thank you. So moving on, further discussion now on the site plan. Jody, anything you want to mention before we discuss?
Just the comments that the reviewing agencies had, and then if you have any comments or questions, it is designed as the site plan is presented, and the Drain Commission and the Road Commission, Mannequin Smith, all their review letters, it will have to, any approval would have to be conditioned upon those, also conditioned upon a determination from the township board. And then if you have any further questions regarding not much development on the site, landscaping, it's going to be the area where the fencing is, and of course the detention pond that will be overseen for installation by the Drain Commission.
Thank you, Jody. Commission members, comments, questions? Okay, if there are no comments or questions, looking for a motion on the site plan. Okay, well, I will give it an attempt here. Make a motion to approve the final site, to recommend approval of the final site plan subject to the following. Determination from the Township Board on the proposed conditional zoning agreement. A landscaping, fencing, and lighting plan should be submitted and reviewed by the Planning Department to ensure compliance. All agency review comments are addressed. A land division application is submitted to and approved by the assessing department. The conditional rezoning agreement and an approved site plan are recorded with the Monroe County Register of Deeds. And the site plan drawing is revised to include all the conditions agreed to, as well as the frontal variance granted by the DDS and the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Support.
Moved and supported. Any further comment? Clarifications? Okay. Jody, you take the roll call vote, please.
Yes. Mr. Kovrat?
Aye.
Mr. Fritz?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Andrews?
Aye.
Mr. Mahoney?
Aye.
Mr. Helm?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Appreciate it, guys. Thanks for working with us. I'll get there. Sorry.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff. Moving on to item number 8B under old business, continuation of the open public hearing regarding the request for a rezoning from C2 Shopping Center to RM2 Multifamily Residential for Rivercrest Properties, Inc. on a vacant parcel located on the east side of Lewis Avenue, north of Stearns Road, parcel number 58-02-026-059-005. So the public hearing is open. From last time, continuation, if there's anyone from the public who'd like to speak, now would be the opportunity. Please state your name and address for the record.
Gail Kane, 1056 West Temperance. Again, I'm not quite up to speed on this, but I've been involved in the township for 50-plus years. And someone alerted me to this, although I had been watching. After noting the huge sand hills from Lewis Avenue, I had called Jody and I said, we got a problem, somebody's digging. So henceforth, I followed through and found out we had an apartment complex going in off of Stearns Road. So my question in all this and concern is that my understanding, in a quick version, is that this site is on Lewis, but it does connect to the property that have the apartments that are being proposed off of Stearns. So is it the same property owner? And if it is, why was this portion not addressed at the same time that they came to you guys for this apartment complex? Now, I understand there were some wetlands or questionable issues on the other one for the apartments and that's been mitigated. We all know from status in the township and other areas that Mother Nature don't really give a crap whether you mitigate it or not. If it's doomed to being flooded, it's going to flood. So we have that issue to the surrounding properties already that will be impacting that. The other thing is that this is spot zoning, in my opinion. You have all this commercial, and that's what we keep hearing. The businesses want businesses. They want a place for people to come in and open new businesses to take care of our 31,000 plus people. And we're not a city. We're still a rural township with general law township rules. So the concern would be is that if it is the same people who are putting in the apartments, unless it is stipulated, they will be able to have this as an egress and ingress to that apartment complex from Stearns Road. This is a problem on Lewis Avenue. It's only 2 lanes right there, and it's where it starts to open into the 5 and come back. So this is going to cause a big, big problem there. There's already issues now when people stop or they try to go to the left or to the right. But that's right where that road opens up if you're going south to the 5 lanes. Stearns Road is already a mess at that intersection with Lewis. There's already major accidents. People like to blow the lights. And we got heavy truck traffic coming out of the industrial park at that intersection. This is not a good idea at all. We end up the new standards also with the Drain Commission coming into play. This is an apartment. Are they going to put structures there, or is this going to be a pretty way in and a pretty way out? What's to happen to the commercial developments that are already in place, and what impact are they going to have to deal with because the apartments or these homes are going to want to have them looking pretty, so they don't have to look at the trailers. John's trailer's right there, and he's been there, and he's took what was empty and a nasty-looking place and turned it into something nice, at least as a business. But yeah, are they going to be forced to have to do some sort of screening so that the residents within this complex are not going to have to look at what they have? So to me, there's a whole lot of issues here that need to be looked at. It is a separate parcel. I suppose they could develop it as separate and you not allow them to use it as an in and out for the apartment complex, which I'm sure this is what the whole thing is, but it's wrong for them to have done this in two separate stages in a way to do this, because that's, to me, is using the back door, and that's just not proper. It's just not kosher, in my opinion. But yeah, to me, they should have addressed it if that's what they're wanting. Why come back to it now? So that traffic, it's a huge deal right there. It's already a mess. I just can't even imagine what would end up happening, and to throw it residential in the middle of all that is commercial. Across the street, you've got Oliver, and those are a different type of condo, and then you've got the apartments. So there's plenty of residential there. You've also got the residential that's off of Stearns Road, then the apartments and Prairie Woods. All that stuff is all down there. Lewis Avenue is not residential in that area at all. So, and this is going to be impacted with Mohawk Trails, and for all of you who've lived here as long as I have, that's Rat Hill. The back half of Mohawk Trails is where the rats live. So that's where the homes of the sand rats. So needless to say, and they have had reports of rats in Oliver now that, so, you know, they've been let loose, so to speak. But yeah, it's just, to me, this isn't a good mix on Lewis Avenue right there. It's a transitional area. And if we throw a bunch of homes in there, or, I mean, we don't even know what they're going to do with it. So to change that zoning is spot zoning. And my understanding is that's not an acceptable thing for Bedford Township. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any additional comments at this time? Okay, seeing that there are no comments. Oh, I'm sorry, please.
He's actually the representative, so if there's no other public comment, I would encourage the public hearing to be closed. Oh.
Yep, Marty, sorry.
I'd first like to hear from the applicant whether or not he's going to proceed with the consideration in a motion, or because, again, we don't have a full body, and I apologize for that. You, of course, have the opportunity to defer again, and then if you're going to defer, I'd like to keep the public hearing open.
I think at this time we'd like to move forward. If some issues come up that maybe the board would like addressed, I'd like the opportunity to table it at that time.
Well, the only issue that could come up is if you don't get 4 votes in the affirmative. You need 4 votes. There's only 6 people here. So because there's short one member, it's more difficult for you if it's a mixed vote to get the 4. So I want to keep the public hearing open and the opportunity if you're going to defer. Now you can address questions and issues and stuff after, I guess, you decide, because really there's not much sense in proceeding with discussion if you're going to defer.
Right. 1 second, please.
And I'm going to advise that I was not informed that Mr. Lamkowski was not going to be here, nor was I informed last meeting that he was not going to be in attendance. So I'm not sure when we would defer to make sure I have a full board after the first of the year.
Marty, to be consistent with our last applicant, I mean, we did proceed, we were short, I believe. And then later in the discussion, when certain things surfaced, there was an opportunity for the applicant to defer or table, right? I assume that
was a lot more complex because it is a conditional rezoning.
Correct.
This is a straight up and down rezoning request. And the applicant needs to understand, and I'm sure he does, that this is merely a recommendation. We're not making a decision. we're giving a recommendation to the township board, which makes the ultimate decision.
Yeah. I think we'll proceed.
Okay, thank you. So at this point, we will close the public hearing. It is 7:34. So the public hearing.
We would like a motion that the applicant chose to move forward, opted to move forward with the determination from the Planning Commission for a recommendation.
You need a recommendation to proceed?
Did you want him to proceed?
You don't need a motion.
Okay. I thought you said you.
He's declared that on the
It's on the record, right? Yep. Okay. All right. So at this point, we will proceed. Well, applicant, you can address any comments or anything you want to present.
Make our motion, Mr. Colrett.
We,
Close the public hearing.
no, we don't.
I thought you said,
Tom did.
Yeah, you made the motion to close the public hearing, correct?
I just closed it.
Yeah, he just closed it. The chair can open and the chair can close the
We
public
don't need a
hearing.
I
motion.
didn't hear you actually say you closed it, though.
Yes, at 7:34.
It's 7:34.
Yes.
I would like to give some background because we did not have discussion at the last meeting because had only 4 members and they opted to defer. The applicant is Cash Wagner and Associates, Nathan Wagner. The owner is Rivercrest Properties, Inc. It's a vacant parcel located on the east side of Lewis Avenue, north of Stearns. Current zoning is C2 Shopping Center. Requested zoning is RM2 multifamily, parcel 5802-026-05905 on approximately 11.44 acres. The vacant subject parcel is approximately 11.44 acres with 363.969 feet of frontage on Lewis Avenue and 370 feet of frontage on Stearns Road. The request is to rezone from C2 Shopping Center to RM2 multifamily residential. The applicant has indicated should the rezoning request be granted, the proposed 11.44 acre area request would be rezoned, and the intent is for an additional development of an extension of the submitted RM2 multifamily residential development to the east, consisting of 140 two-bedroom units and 4 one-bedroom units, not yet approved to the east. The Planning Department requested a review from the rezoning request from Ms. Fortin, the Manikin Smith Group, the planner for Bedford Township, supplied an overall review of the subject area, and the information is included in the packet. Ms. Fortin's review, the conclusion of the request suggests the Planning Commission makes a recommendation to the Township Board to approve the rezoning for the parcel located on Lewis Avenue, identified by 5802-026-05905 from C2 Shopping Center Business District to RM2 multifamily. This recommendation is grounded in the following key reasons: support from the master plan's future land use, provisions of a suitable transition use between the business land uses in the intersection of Stearns and Lewis Avenue and the nearby single-family residential, alignment with the township's master plan goals and policies, ample space on the parcel to preserve the site's natural features, and mitigate potential negative impacts on higher density residential uses on an adjacent lower intensity use through effective screening and landscaping. Anticipation of high-quality site and architectural design consistent with the township's site and architectural design manual, and likely supported from the nearby utility infrastructure. Master plan designates this site as a neighborhood business to promote mixed use and flexible redevelopment in the area outside the village center, a mix of residential, office, and lower intensity commercial uses. I know there's been discussion on the proposed development. Keep in mind that is its own separate parcel. That is not what is being discussed, nor is a potential development at this time on this parcel that's requested to be rezoning. I know the applicant submitted a preliminary conceptual plan showing additional units. The portion that is labeled on your packet information, that shows the 4 units labeled Bedford Place Apartments. This is Stearns Road. This piece right here is what is proposed and submitted for. This is the intended rezoning, and that is all we are looking at, no potential development at this time.
So Jody, that the piece to the east that you said has been submitted, that's currently zoned.
Currently zoned RM2. I'm not sure. I looked back to see if I could find an actual date of the rezoning, if it was rezoned or if it's always been RM2. I was unsuccessful, but that piece was not rezoned by the property owner. It was rezoned. It was multifamily when they submitted. There was no rezoning done for the potential development.
Okay, thank you. So if the applicant, if you could state your name and address for the record, and then any comments you want to provide.
Were you going to get into the Manick Smith report at all?
I read where she, in her conclusion, I read that in the analysis, what her conclusion was.
Okay.
Mhm. If you have any points that you want to discuss further with the commission, absolutely.
So, so for the record, Nathan Wagner, Cash Wagner and Associates, 402 East 13th Street, Jasper, Indiana. I'm the engineer of record for the developer and the potential buyer on this property. The developer would be the same developer as Jody said that's proposing to develop the apartments to the east. So it would be kind of a contiguous property that is already zoned multifamily. To address some of the comments that were brought up tonight, you know, this property was never intended to be developed originally as apartments. When we looked at the other apartments to the east, it was the same property owner that sold our client, you know, the apartment project, and he came to us and, you know, said he's having a hard time selling as commercial. He's had it on the market for a while, couldn't find. You know, another property owner to the north also owns some commercial lot. They approached us about taking it over and doing another phase. You know, and a third property owner that was down the road a little bit. But so there's 3 property owners in the area that has approached our client about developing because they can't get commercial leads. So we took the opportunity to jump on it. It was an opportunity to have an access out to Lewis. I will say, though, that the access out to Lewis is not at a location that is only 2 lane. It is at the location where there is a full 5 lanes. So I know the lady a minute ago said there was only 2 lanes, or it was necking down right there.
So, Mr. Wagner, if you could real quick, so is that the plan? And again, I know we're not getting into the plan here, but since you mentioned it, the intent is to have access on Stearns and with this new rezoning, if it does go through, on Lewis. So you'd have 2, and these would be a connected piece.
Yes, because working with the road commission, we heard some objections to the landowners on Stearns, that they did not want more traffic on Stearns or a widening of Stearns because some of those houses are too close to the road and they don't want their Stearns Road widened in front of them. And some other concerns about the traffic on Stearns, that this became an opportunity for us to look at, you know, future growth that was adjacent to the property we were already working on, instead of having, you know, if they decide next year to find another piece, then it would be not contiguous. So now we have a contiguous piece that provides access over to Lewis. Now we can potentially either direct all the traffic to Lewis or split it and split the traffic in half, if you will.
That was my next question. Thank you.
Yeah.
You're reading my mind here. It was going to be, so what, again, if the rezoning were to go through, is the plan, the thought to eliminate or not pursue the Stearns Road and have one point of access on Lewis?
I suspect that if we are allowed to have an access off Stearns, it would probably be limited to a right in, right out, rather than a full access, since that would be 2 lane only.
Okay, thank you. Didn't mean to interrupt. You can continue.
Yeah, so we did some preliminary calculations on traffic, and the traffic volume in the road section being 5 lanes on Lewis is appropriate. It can handle the traffic. It would not diminish the level of service. We've also looked at what could potentially been built on this commercial piece, you know, if we don't get the rezoning granted. And, you know, the traffic volume generated by apartments compared to commercial is substantially less. I know everybody thinks that apartments generate a lot of traffic because a lot of people live there, but they come and go at a relatively small rate. You know, they come and go for work. They might leave for a doctor's office. But when you could potentially put fast food restaurants, I mean, this is 11-acre commercial piece. So there's a lot of ample acres for commercial. Restaurants, fast food restaurants, shopping center, grocery store. I mean, you could have 10 to 20 times the volume of cars coming out of that commercial piece as you can a residential, easily.
So again, I know there's a conceptual, and I just, address it if you can or if you feel comfortable. My understanding is we're looking to the east, which we're not discussing here today as far as the rezoning request. There's 144 units that are being planned for single bedroom, one bedroom, and then 140 two bedroom. You're showing 3 additional buildings here as a conceptual plan. How many additional apartments would that be? Maybe I could just do a ratio.
Roughly 108. It's about 3/4.
So a total of 250 plus.
252.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Covert?
Mr. Steiner.
Again, as Mr. Covert said, we're not looking at the parcel to the east, but it's been commented that you've got that submitted. I believe that's at the Drain Commission, or at the county planning, looking at that one. Is that correct? Is that still where it's at?
It's just being reviewed for site plan. It does not have to go through any type of rezoning. The road commission, the drain commission for soil erosion and storm and water, and the Mannequin-Smith Fire Department has been looking at it, and then the Township Planning Department. But that is just a site plan. It will not go to any other department. Once the determination is made on those reviewing agents, it will just come to the Planning Commission for a decision as a final site plan.
Okay. Is there any intent that if you got this rezoning, is there any intent to do a combination with those 2 parcels and make it one parcel overall, or will they still be separate based on you've got a site plan for the one to the east, you'd have a site plan for this one, or would you do a land combination and make it one large parcel?
Can I ask where you're going with this?
Just information, because I guess my question is, as we said, we're talking about possibly approving something off Lewis Avenue when we aren't 100% certain of everything to the east. If that was already approved, we saw stipulations, what the site plan actually says, then that might make an easier decision out of.
So I think the plan would be, if we got the rezoning, we would continue with the project to the east, but it also have a driveway out to Lewis. So the project, if we got the rezoning and that development on this rezone piece was never happened, we'd still want the project to the east to have access to Lewis through this parcel.
So you'd have to actually get an easement from somebody then to do that?
Well, technically, no, because
Or do you already own it?
they don't own it yet. But once they would get the rezoning, they would purchase it, then they would own both parcels. So they would go.
If I could. What if the rezoning doesn't happen?
That's where I was sort of going. If the rezoning doesn't happen,
We don't purchase. Then we don't purchase.
Okay.
And what happens with the property to the east?
Then we've got to go back to the road commission and only work on Stearns Road access, which we've heard majority.
Has there been an investigation? And again, I know this is very preliminary, but this is a lower parcel, some wet areas back there. Anything with Eagle involvement, or waiting till, of course,
So it was
site plan?
it was very similar to the parcel to the east. There was some isolated wetlands, but they were non-jurisdictional.
So there's nothing there of anything.
I believe they had a delineation done, and I believe the wetlands were unregulated.
Right.
I just wanted to make one comment, too, regarding Mr. Steiner's comment about the easement. Should they not be combined? When they came for the final site plan, I will say as a planning department, I would require some kind of combination restriction, because we would have no idea if the road commission is going to approve a right-in, right-out, or an access off Lewis Avenue until it's submitted for that type of development. So they could sell one without the other.
Well, you said that better than I could, but that's sort of where I was going.
I figured that's where you were going. That's why I thought I'd give just a little bit more clarification, because even though they own both of them now, if they were to sell one without the other, that property owner could say you cannot use that access, and then the parcel to the east would only have a right-in, right-out off of Stearns. That could be detrimental to that parcel.
Right.
Let me go a step farther. If that were to happen, we want to focus on getting the rezoning, right, obviously tonight and through the township board. And if that happens, our next step would be focus on getting that access from the east property out to Lewis. And whether we need to do an easement or whatever we need to do, we'll get that in place and get it approved by the road commission. Should this rezone parcel, or when this rezone parcel would be developed next, as apartments, the benefit, we would prefer, or our client would prefer, to keep them separate parcels, mainly because of lending issues. That way, they'll obviously have a loan on the east parcel, and then when this phase would get developed, it would be a different loan. So that way they could have each parcel for collateral.
Marty, I'm going to ask a question. If we can, to build on Rick's comments, sorry to interrupt, but it's related to that. If there was a motion, can it be contingent upon or requiring two full, for lack of a better word, points of access to the development?
I don't believe that we can condition rezoning other than what we did earlier tonight, which was submitted by the applicant as a conditional rezoning agreement. That is a very limited thing in the law that provides for that. Otherwise, we cannot put conditions on a rezoning. I would also state that if each of these parcels were to remain separate, and each of them potentially subject to separate financing, and consequently given as collateral to a lender, that they would have to be able to be designed as stand-alone developments and not rely upon each other because one may be foreclosed on and the other not.
Well, that's the case where we would get that's why I said we'd get an easement across this parcel while developing the east parcel.
So again, to go to what Mr. Corvette also jumped in there. So in other words, if your site plan, everything goes through on the parcel to the east, and you did get approval for a rezoning recommendation, township says, okay. What if somebody says, from the east parcel, I get an easement on this west parcel, and now I'm going to eliminate the entrance off of Stearns Road? And I guess that goes to where Mr. Corvette asked about conditional of a drive off of both, because I could see that happening too, because it's a lot of money, especially, I mean, there's some distance to run that off Stearns Road as well. So I could see that happening too, where they could say, we're not going to put that entrance in there. One of the subdivisions I was in here 20-some years ago had similar, granted it was a subdivision, but still they were supposed to put an entrance in, and it didn't happen. They decided, we're not going to do that. And they just had another phase come in, and they didn't make the connection. So that's one of my concerns there is they decide not to make a connection. Now we're going to force everything out to Lewis Avenue. Because if you've got an easement agreement, that east parcel could drive everything through there.
Well, when I said we looked at the traffic volumes and calculations and then a preliminary study, we went a worst case and showed that no traffic went to Stearns and all the traffic went to Lewis. And then it showed that the 5 lanes that are there are sufficient to not diminish the level of service. So we kind of looked at some worst case scenarios.
I think probably one of the worst case scenarios there would be that if all the traffic was going to Lewis Avenue, I'm going to take a wild guess, but I'll bet you 90% of that traffic would have to turn left across all those 4 or 5 lanes. So that makes it a little bit difficult there too. Obviously they're not going to put a light in there.
Yeah.
So it's just a health.
Well, and for that reason, that's why we want to keep that Stearns Road access for to drop the traffic in half and just make everything a little better.
Go ahead. Mr. Mahoney's got something.
Mr. Mahoney.
Yeah, I agree with Mr. Steiner. I think, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong. Do you think most of your tenants will come from Bedford or will they come from Toledo? Because they're probably going to be heading south every day. So it'll be a left turn onto Lewis heading south.
Right.
Or turning right off of Stearns to that intersection to go left.
So if they were able to go right on the Stearns, then they could make a left at the light, potentially, to alleviate that problem.
So
Right.
is it 140, I think you asked this question before, Tom, but 142 bedroom units, that on which you're proposing or on the
No,
existing?
the east parcel, 108 on this.
So what do you expect on the
108.
108? So you're talking 300 cars, 3 to 350, somewhere in there?
Yeah. So
So it seems like a lot of traffic, a lot of stress on that intersection.
So in the peak hour, the 108 additional units would have the worst case would be 33 leaving in the morning and during the peak hour. So a car every 2 minutes. Same thing in peak hour in, which would be the evening, a car every 2 minutes turning in.
So yeah, I think it would add a lot of stress to that intersection that it's probably not built for right now. And I don't know if they've timed the lights
But
different.
now, when I go back to the commercial side, we looked at a shopping plaza and a fast food. You're talking 200 to 300 cars an hour, in and out,
Depending on the business.
versus 10 to 35.
Evened out. They're not all leaving at 7:30 to go to work at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Right. You're
That
right.
sort of thing.
Right.
So yeah, that concerns me. And the other thing is, I know that you can draw a conclusion about how this aligns, your application aligns with the master plan, and I can't disagree, but then the way I look at it, the master plan specifically says the goal is to promote neighborhoods that contribute to the quality of life and the sense of community in Bedford Township. I don't see apartment buildings doing that per se, and we do have a good mix of rental units and homes, but I think what the master plan really wants are neighborhoods, homes, communities, that sort of thing. Would you disagree?
I agree that there needs to be a good mix, but we have this. I think it's an 11-acre parcel as commercial is hard to develop these days. Very hard.
And I can't disagree. It's like what comes first, commercial investment or population?
And I get this all the time. And we're looking at a project in St. John's, Michigan, that Myers is looking to us to buy land to develop apartments because they're not going to build a store until there's more rooftops. Mm-hmm. And that's how it happens all the time. People say they want commercial first, but it just doesn't work that way. And the big box stores don't build as much as they used to. This commercial's kind of dead right now and has been for a while. And 11-acre parcel in this neighborhood is not a good sized parcel. Now maybe if we split off the frontage to smaller commercial lots, maybe, and then keep the apartments in the back, that's more appropriate, if you will, where the apartments are a stepping stone from commercial to the single family, which would be Prairie Woods to the east.
Yeah, Mr. Wagner, building on Mr. Mahoney's comment, one of my questions was, there's a lot of apartments in that intersection area now, and now we're talking about 250 plus additional ones. Have you guys done any sort of market analysis? Is there a need?
Yes.
For that many more apartments?
Yes.
From Bedford or Toledo?
It's to get people to move here. Yeah. There's not a place right now. There's not many places right now that don't need apartments, and Bedford's one of them. And I've been working with these guys for a long time, and they know their market studies, and they've never missed one.
So when you say yes, there's a need, you have a study, you hired an external firm to do a study, or it's just based on your experience and your.
They do their own internal studies. They don't hire third party. Okay. I mean, this is all they do is build apartments. They don't do a little bit of apartments, a little bit of single family, a little bit of commercial. They only do apartments. So they know their product and their market pretty well.
Thank you. Mr. Mahoney?
My experience is anecdotal, just talking to a lot of people in the community about the need for rental units. And it seems like people in Bedford, really what they're looking for are homes that they can rent. And in the neighborhood of anywhere from $1,300 to $1,500 a month. I understand those apartments, is it Jacob, behind Jacobs, they're about $1,200 for a 2-bedroom? You know? Jacobs Supply across Lewis.
The Oliver.
Oh, the Oliver, okay. Yeah, honestly, I don't know.
I think you're correct
over there.
Mr. Mahoney. I
About right.
think you're
in
probably
that $1,100
right.
to $1,300 range for multi-unit or multi-room.
That's probably close.
So, I guess I see the benefit. I could make the argument for you. I mean, the tax benefit is a huge one.
Yeah.
I think that land behind Jacobs Supply they had taxable value of a couple $100,000. Today it's like $3 million. So it's a big tax boost for the economy. And if there are kids that live there, if they're enrolled in Bedford schools, that helps the schools with enrollment. But I just don't know that the master plan is all about creating revenue, tax revenue for the infrastructure and whatnot. I think it's more than that. It's about building the communities and the neighborhoods. I guess that's my concern.
Thank you. Additional comments? Questions from the commission? If not, we are looking for a motion. Are we ready for a motion? Make it. Absolutely. Mr. Andrews.
So I guess most of the discussion's been centered around the development of the apartment complex, which as of today is the intent. But looking at the rezoning as a whole, as a commission, the current commercial zone versus a residential, the restrictiveness of the residential is going to be a little bit more restrictive than the commercial, and open to the development of, maybe to your concern, Pat, not just apartment complexes, but potentially one-family detached dwellings and such. I think for us to not recommend on the basis of, we don't maybe want more apartments in Bedford Township, maybe it's reasonable, but are we looking at the zone classification as a whole, or just the potential that it might be developed because of the proposed, well, it's not even proposed, it's just a conceptual option. I just wonder if we're given a fair assessment of the rezoning, just because we're kind of jumping the gun a little bit just to say, well, that's what it's going to be developed to use, and very well so could be, right? But is the concern that we don't want more apartments in Bedford, or that the residential class is not fit for this parcel more so than commercial? I mean, I just driving past it, just a comment, I've seen that's been for sale for a long time as commercial and undeveloped. So just something to consider.
Yeah, a concern I have, based on what we heard this evening, is the potential for only one point of access, one primary point, whether it's coming off of Lewis or Stearns. The applicant has shared, there was concern expressed by residents on Stearns. So one of the intended outcomes or anticipated outcomes would be to get this access on Lewis, and then with limited access on Stearns, from the health, safety, welfare, that many cars using one point concerns me. What if something happens? What if there's an accident there that blocks that entrance? It just creates quite a bit of health safety concerns for me to grant that rezoning request.
But if I may, the extra 108 units is relative to the potential future development of the apartment complex. That is not up for discussion tonight, correct? That would have to go through site plan approval if approved for rezoning. And would
To be
therefore,
approved, keep in mind that they're proposing 3 buildings that they show with 108, but it doesn't mean they couldn't add more, nor could they change the type of development that goes there.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not looking at any type of development on that parcel at this time. It is only the rezoning. So we can't take into consideration that it's even being proposed just for 108, because if they're marketing, and at some point they could come back, and they do have the frontage here on Stearns Road as well. This is part of that parcel as well. So keep in mind that no development is being proposed tonight, or the development type is being discussed. It is for rezoning, and if you look in Ms. Fortin's packet, it does give other types of uses that would be permitted in a multifamily, and does give the uses that for commercial.
Yeah, and I believe that 108 is the maximum density allowed. So if we proposed more, we would have to get a variance.
I guess the point is to say that there seems like there's some concern among the group of the future access and how it might be developed, and that's all well and good. But what's shown here is not what's being proposed, and what will be proposed in the future will have to be weighed in on by the Planning Commission during site plan approval, and the Road Commission, and all
Ask
parties.
the applicant for clarification, but I believe the intent, though, is to still try to get that access off Lewis Avenue, should it be rezoned, to still serve the parcel to the east, should the Road Commission review and approve it. That's the uncertainty. And the access off Stearns Road for that parcel to the east has not been approved by the Road Commission.
But to answer Jody's comment, that's correct. Our focus would be to get an access out to Lewis for the east project as well, regardless of what happens on this parcel. We would like to keep this access on Stearns. If the Road Commission doesn't want to grant full access, we would push for the right in, right out. And as a worst case, if they don't want any access on Stearns, they've never said this, but we would ask for an emergency only access. Meaning, fire, police, EMS could use that as an access.
Chairman?
Mr. Fritz.
This will go to the, I just lost the word.
Township Board.
It'll go to the Monroe Road Committee. And they're the ones that's going to say, hey, you can't have that accident, you can't have that, you have to do this. Isn't that correct? I mean, we can't design the in and outs until we see the big pictures, and that's not our job as I see it. Because in the end, it's going to be the Road Commission that's going to say this is that correct?
That's correct.
Am I thinking right?
Yes.
The access has no determination on the rezoning. That is correct.
We basically have to justify why we would recommend to rezone this. And, like I said, I think currently we have a good mix of rental units and homes, but I don't think we should keep building apartment buildings and attracting people from Toledo if Bedford had demand, I'd say, yeah, we need it, let's build it, let's develop it. But you already have a swath of land there that you can build apartment buildings on. It's already been approved. I just don't think we need to add more.
Yeah, and to clarify, Mr. Andrews, to your point, yes. I mean, we need to look at this as a rezoning request, and it could be anything that's allowed under the RM2 if that's what it's changed to. So it's a little misleading because we're looking at these conceptuals and having these discussions, but to Mr. Mahoney's point, it's do we feel it's justified to rezone this based on all the information that we have? Without getting too focused on what the conceptual design is, the access, et cetera. Any additional questions, comments? Not looking for a motion.
The one comment I have, at this time, it borders to those other residential ones right there. And so that would be, in my opinion, considered as mixed as you're moving into the commercial.
I'm sorry, Mr. Fritz, can you elaborate? I didn't know if I followed you there. It's adjacent to 2 residential?
Well, behind that, it borders the RM2, R3, and R2A. I mean, it's another project over, but
You're talking about Prairie Woods?
yes.
So leaving it as is, C2 going from transitional zoning to RM2 and then over to R3.
And as you move north, you have the C3, and I can't see other one.
Yeah, that Lewis Avenue is, those of us who've been in the township for a while, I mean, that was originally the commercial corridor, right? And that's why it was installed 5 lanes, et cetera. And it's commercial, and we've got zoning in place, the transitional zoning from there to RM2 to R3. That's a very logical planning sequence from commercial to single-family residential. I understand the challenges. It's been up for sale. It doesn't mean it won't happen. Just haven't found the right buyer yet, right use, et cetera. Giving up commercial, changing the zoning from commercial along the designated commercial corridor that's been in the township for 30 plus years. It just doesn't seem right to me.
Well, when you say that too, that was the original plan for Bedford Township. It wasn't supposed to be Stearns and Secor Road. It just so happened that that's where the efforts were focused at one point, and that's where it grew. Basically, the area of Stearns and Secor, it's pretty much tapped out at this point. So going forward, when it comes to businesses, this is going to be the corridor where they're going to want to go or going to have to go in the future. And I'm not talking 4 or 5 years, I'm talking, 10, 15, 20 years to continue to grow and have the businesses. This is the only place left is along the Lewis Avenue corridor. So that's where I'm really struggling with it. Again, this is strictly a rezoning request. Obviously, we can't put conditions on this. I've got some ideas I think would possibly work for a developer, but that's not up to me to do that. Those are just personal thoughts. So right now, I'll say it, I'm not making a motion, but I'll say it right now, I'm currently not in favor of a rezoning on this parcel.
Any further comments, questions? Okay, I will take a shot at a motion here. I will make a motion to recommend denial of the request for a rezoning from C2 shopping center to RM2 multifamily residential for the Rivercrest Properties, Inc. on vacant parcel 58-02-026-059-05, with the rationale being zoning in place is appropriate and provides a transitional zoning from commercial C2 to RM2 to R3, moving east from the subject property.
I'll second.
Moved and supported. Any further discussion, clarifications?
Just a clarification, so the motion was made to deny the request, so
Correct.
So you're either
an
voting.
affirmative would mean you agree to deny.
Correct.
Okay.
Mr. And again, it's merely a recommendation. It's not a decision.
Okay. Jody, take the roll call vote, please.
Mr. Croveret,
Aye.
Mr. Steiner,
Aye.
Mr. Andrews,
Nay.
Mr. Fritz,
Nay.
Mr. Helm.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Aye.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Mahoney. You were in the motion.
Good. All right, so the recommendation is to deny the rezoning. It goes to the
Motion.
board at this point, and then they act on it. Correct?
Yes, it passed 4-2 for denial.
Correct.
Okay.
And just to make note, since I'm the Township Board liaison, I will take this to the Township Board objectively. I will not give a personal opinion of, the record will be there, that they'll see who voted how. But I'm going to be fair and open and let the entire 7-member Township Board discuss this, because the Township Board could say, yes, let's pass this.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 10, public comment. Is there anyone from the public who'd like to speak at this time? Please state your name and address.
Gail Kane, 1056 West Temperance. Thank you. It's not a matter of whether it's apartments or not. Everybody wants to live someplace. The problem here is the infrastructure. If you took 144 times 2, even a single bedroom apartment's going to have 2 cars. You take all of these numbers together, you're talking approximately 500 vehicles. And that is not within the middle of those 5 lanes on Lewis Avenue. It is right where it begins. So those of us that are traveling from downtown Temperance, heading south, are starting to make our motions to get into one lane or the other. So it's just not a good spot. And it was my understanding that John's Trailer opposed this. So I don't understand where they said that they were all in favor of them taking this over, because it really would cause a problem with traffic going in between these commercial properties. So again, thank you. The other thing is that farewell, Mr. Fritz. I will miss seeing you at the meetings. And you guys are going to be very fortunate to having Mr. Lake coming. He's very professional. He pays attention to detail, and he does abide by the guidelines for the rulings as to how and why you make your decisions the way you do. You guys have a rough job. I commend you for what you do. I wouldn't want to sit on this board. And Jody, of course, also. Merry Christmas to all of you.
Thank you. Any additional comments?
I'm Marjorie Kuzno, 7849 Comanche Trail, and I'm glad it went this way because, quite frankly, talking about Lewis Avenue, Stearns Road is more or less the divider between Lewis Avenue being wider and it narrowing at Stearns Road to 2 lanes. And anything going north is 2 lanes. Not 5, not 4. Today, I think it was about 10:15, 10:30, I was pulling out onto Stearns Road, and I had to wait for 15 cars to come down Stearns to go to Lewis. The light changed and we sat there, and then finally it changed and a lot of people turned right. But there's also a train track down there, and today wasn't my day because I got caught by the train. And in other words, Lewis Avenue coming up to Stearns provides pretty good ability to travel. But you get to Stearns Road and Lewis, and it suddenly shrinks to 2 lanes. And don't forget you have a lot of people living in that area. And school is not in session yet. But again, and I'm going to make a comment that looking at the apartments that were built a few years ago off of Stearns Road, they're 3 stories high. And I still can't figure out why they were built with no ability to travel from the 1st floor to the 3rd floor except step by step by step. I didn't believe it, and I went over there and saw it myself. And they're not even wide steps. What happens if there's a fire and people try to get out? I think there'd be a lot of deaths. It's just Bedford has grown a lot, and in general, it's progressed well. But my golly, I don't envy you facing what just went through.
Well, thank you. Appreciate your comments.
Anyhow, in other words, keep up the good work.
Thank you. Okay, we will move on to information item number 11. Jody?
Yes, I would also like to thank Mr. Fritz for all of his dedication and service to the community. It's been a pleasure working with you, and I hope you continue to serve the community, maybe on another board or a commission or the Green Initiative. There's tons of committees if you'd like to stay involved. I am going to welcome Mr. Lake. Jake Lake has served on the Planning Commission prior, and he has also been on the Board of Zoning Appeals for several years. And I'm thankful that he was willing to continue to serve the community as well and continue his service moving to the Planning Commission. And the Township Board did appoint him last night's meeting. The next meeting for Planning Commission is scheduled for January 10th. On that note, I'd like to wish everyone a very Merry Christmas and a happy and safe New Year, and enjoy your family time. Planning Department is still working on the CIP. We will be making some amendments, and that will be coming back in January, probably the second meeting in January. But we are working, we have been working with MTA on getting some clarification. So that process will be changing. It will be looking more directly towards structures and structural improvements and that type only. Anything else further will be handled in everyone's individual budgets. Other than that, excellent job, a lot of discussion. I know your job's not easy, and that's why I'm on this side of the table, and I just provide the facts to you. So I will thank you for your discussion tonight, and it will move forward. I requested the Township Board meeting. At this time, those items will be not on until the second meeting of January for the Township Board, as I'm unaware of what is all on the 9th with the holiday schedule. Township Hall is closed on the 25th and the 26th, and it is closed on the 1st and the 2nd. Thank you, and have a good evening.
Thank you, Jody. Move on to commission staff comment. Mr. Fritz, you have the floor.
I'd just like to say thank you to the planning department. They do an awesome job of supplying us with the information we need. And for all the board members, it's been a pleasure working with you, learning with you. You guys do a good job. And to Marty, thank you also.
Thank you. Mr. Steiner.
Happy holidays.
Mr. Steiner.
Again, I want to thank Mr. Fritz for his time and service to the Planning Commission. It's always a big thing for the community. It's hard to find people that are willing to serve. You could pay somebody or give them $0, and it's still tough to get people to want to participate. And again, this is a tough board. Well, not always, but it can be a tough board and commission to sit on because of things like tonight. It's very difficult. I mean, I'll admit, I was 50-50 on this thing for quite some time, but that's what the discussion is all about. And that's what helps make our decisions at some point. Back to Mr. Fritz, the last thing, I think that now you're either going to do one of two things. You're just going to say, I'm going to travel, have fun, or you're going to sit back and watch these meetings from the comfort of your easy chair and have a hot toddy to go with it. And say, I'm glad I'm not you guys. So, thanks, Ron.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mr. Andrews.
Yeah, I just want to say a quick thanks to the commission and the planning department. Coming up on the end of my first year on the commission, and appreciate everyone kind of showing me the ropes, how everything's done. Looking forward to a productive 2024. Merry Christmas, everyone. Thanks.
Very good. Thank you. Mr. Mahoney.
Ron, it was nice meeting you, and I hope to see you again in the future. And just want to say Merry Christmas to everyone.
Mr. Helm.
Ron, it's been a pleasure working with you and on the board for the last few years. So good luck to you. Thanks for the discussion tonight. I was on the fence all the way and then just pushed me over to the nay. So, and thank you, Jody, and for taking care of getting all the information, and Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to everybody.
Thank you. Katrina?
I just want to wish everyone a happy holidays and a safe and happy new year.
Marty?
I also would commend the Planning Commission tonight. You looked at all sides of the issues and had some great discussion. You didn't hammer on the applicant. You asked them great questions. You understood the issues, and you made your decision, mixed decision, which is fine, and understood all the issues. So I think this is one of the best meetings I've witnessed here tonight. And Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, everybody.
Thank you, Marty. Wow, I don't know what to say after that. Holy cow. Yeah, well, that was awesome.
Great way to end the year, right?
Mr. Colbert, just one last thing. I'd be remiss. I can't believe I didn't say everybody have a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Mr. Fritz, thank you. Gonna miss you. Thanks for your contributions. Thanks for your involvement. As Rick said, it's tough to get people to do what we do, and we definitely appreciate it. And you'll be missed. Thanks, everyone, for tonight. Good discussion. That was a tough one. So I definitely appreciate the openness and batting things around. And, we don't always have to agree 100% on everything. It's just coming to the good decision. And I think we did that tonight. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, enjoy the time, get some rest, and enjoy time with friends and family. And with that, we will adjourn. Meeting is adjourned.